Welcome back to mckilliplife. This is Amber, and this will be a project vlog for February the 9th, 2025. This was a Sunday, and we spent most of the day with community and relaxing and just taking our time. But in the afternoon and evening, West and I decided to spend about an hour working on the house on a project that would take both of us to work on. And we decided setting up the case of the Ikea cabinet would take two of us. All the insides I can usually do by myself, but putting together the actual case of it would take two of us. So that is what we chose to focus on. And it's definitely a project for two people, just simply because the boxes are so large and so unwieldy, and it helps to have one person reading the instructions while the other person's finding the parts and putting things together. When our previous cabinet collapsed, I had every desire to reuse parts and not order everything possible for this new cabinet, because IKEA is notorious for being able to reuse things. But West had a good point that it had been probably over 10 years since that old cabinet had been ordered, and things probably had changed since then. And in the process of putting this together, it was very true. Things were different. Because I remember in the previous one, you would build the top and the bottom and the two sides, and then you turn the whole thing over and you nail on the backing. And you'll see on this one, the backing is integrated into the whole thing. This feature turned out to be nice because, as you can see, we can just stand it up and it stands up on its own, and there's no trying to flip over the entire cabinet on the ground. The next difference was the feet. Previously, the cabinet stood on metal feet, and then you had a toe kick that covered the front of it. And here, the feet were incorporated into the cabinet, and it could raise it up some, but it wasn't like the whole thing was just sitting on top of feet, four little feet. At least that's how my memory says it was. It might not be true, but this was definitely different, because before it was metal feet, and here it's plastic feet that had incorporated leveling properties, and they just sit inside the cabinet. As you can see, there's little black things down there. Also, these boards, I guess they'd be runners that go left and right in the cabinet to give it structure. Before, you had to nail in all the wooden dowels in order to attach it to the side walls. And here the dowels came already pre-installed, and so all you had to do was pop it in place. The things that they changed in the design definitely made it simpler to install, but in some ways it also makes it not as interchangeable if you want to customize anything. They also have a incorporated system to attach it to the wall. I think I've already mentioned that. And here, these gaps in the corner were the hardware. And even though we weren't putting the rail on the back to attach to the wall, I didn't want big gaps up there. And the top of the cabinet did attach to some of the hardware that was used to attach it to the wall. So we had to install some of it in order for it to work. But back to the base, Wes pulled out the level and was working on leveling the bottom. This was pretty fiddly because the Allen wrench they gave us was barely long enough to reach down to the bottom of the mechanism to adjust the feet. But we were able to do it in the end of the day. A lot of IKEA projects are just this, standing over the instructions, looking at the parts, trying to look carefully at all the little diagrams, seeing what orientation they're on. A lot of what I cut out of this video is us standing over the instructions doing just this. But here we are discussing all the parts that we did or didn't need to use to attach the top of the cabinet. And in the end, it all worked out. We went back to those parts that were supposed to attach it to the wall, but I didn't want the gaps left. And how were we going to fill the holes but not attach it to the wall? We came up with a method, and were able to fill the holes. Lastly was to install the base of the cabinet to cover up the feet and give that illusion of the toe kick on the bottom. And at this point, we had to decide if we're going to continue on with the project, because the next step was to be installing the doors. And Wes was checking the time and said, let's call it a night and we can continue with this tomorrow. So it was just simply putting everything back into the corner so the dogs wouldn't trip over it. Pause the project for the next day. Thank you for joining in on this adventure of putting our house back together and finding out what Home 2.0 looks like. Until next time, feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.